every month we're going to look at these three things. And last month you were at a 5% margin. This month you're at 6. Doesn't matter. We're improving. You improved your margin by 20% from 5 to 6. So we're on the right track here, right? And that's what you want to do. Is you can't improve what you can't measure. So you want to start by measuring.
You're listening to the Spotlight edition of The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Louis Prosperi. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. I'm Louis Prosperi. Our returning guest is the co-founder and chief revenue officer at Hub Analytics, Tommy Vincent. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Louis. It's great to be back.
I really enjoy interview, Tommy. It's always fun. You have so much knowledge. And at the end of the day, it doesn't sound like an infomercial. It sounds like a nice conversation with a lot of key nuggets in it. And what we're going to talk about today is probably going to be something that is big in everybody's mind nowadays because they talk about advisory services. But let's start with the part about, well, what metrics, if you want to get into advisory, what kind of metrics should the professional look at from their customer's perspective? Like, what should they be tracking? And give us 2 or 3 to start off with.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. And before I jump into the specific metrics, I think the point you initially just made there, like advisory, right? Everyone's talking about advisory, and Hub Analytics was created to kind of accelerate and make that leap a lot easier and a lot better for folks. Even if we work with a ton of fractional CFOs, we work with a ton of CPA firms and CAS firms, depending on what acronym you like. And it doesn't matter. And we work with a ton of bookkeepers. And it doesn't matter which group you fall into. I think a lot of times, specifically, I think this is good for this community to hear, is that we talk with a lot of bookkeepers, and I think that they sometimes feel a little bit intimidated by being an advisor. And what I can tell people here on this podcast is talk to fractional CFOs, I talk to CPAs, they don't know it either, right? They've been doing tax for 30 years, or they've been doing this. And they're not, it's new territory for a lot of folks. And I think the bookkeepers are equally as well positioned to be those people and to be those advisors for their customers, especially with the help of technology, whether it be Hub or plenty of other things. I know Keepers out there doing a little automation for some of the debits and credits and all that kind of stuff. So I think that it's a really exciting time, in my humble opinion, to be a bookkeeper with a healthy book of business that you could potentially pivot into a little bit more of advisory work. So, but let's talk about the metrics. I like the question. And the reason I think that it's a prudent question is that I think it goes back to that intimidation. We talk with a lot of bookkeepers, and they're like, I don't know where to start. It's always the question of, I love it. I like the idea, but I'm not quite sure where to start. And so we try to simplify things, right? Simple is always better. Keep it simple. Stupid as is the acronym, right? KISS, so to speak. And so less is more. I think the overarching lesson is less is more to begin with. And the reason I say that, especially for this audience, is that the average bookkeeper's client size is what we want to look at, right? And what we find is that it's anywhere from $200,000 to $300,000 annual revenue that the client is generating, maybe to about $2 to $3 million, on the high end. They might have 1 or 2 clients doing $2 or $3 million, but I think that sweet spot is between like 500,000 to about 1 million, 1.2. Those are not massive companies. This is not Nike. This is not, take your pick. They don't need, 45 different KPIs for each department that they're running.
That's true.
They're just trying to run a better business. And so when we think about KPIs, we want to keep it simple. And the 3 that we've narrowed in on is, number 1 is net equity. which is so important, and I'll explain that a little bit. Net cash from operations, and again, profitability. Okay. And so let's talk about those individually one by one, because I think that that's where the
Okay.
rubber meets the road.
So, Tommy, when we talk about these metrics for the bookkeeper, for the professional, basically, this is not a lot of, let's put it this way, it should be in their wheelhouse anyway. They should be doing most of the work to get these numbers anyway. It's not like they have to spend another 15 or 20 hours to get these metrics correct. It's not, it's just changing some of their dynamics. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yep. But yeah, so here's the interesting thing. The three metrics that we've picked out, and I said profitability, I use that interchangeably. We'll call it net operating income, net equity, and net cash from operations. Those three things, guess what they align with? The three core financial statements. What do we want to learn from each of those statements? The income statement, the balance sheet, and the cash flow statement, right? What is it that we really want to learn from each of those? And what we've learned, just for what it's worth for all the listeners, is the average the average business owner, can probably tell you net operating income. Most of them can read their income statement, I would say, the vast majority. But the balance sheet and the cash flow statement, that's where the rubber meets the road in terms of the value that we can provide as advisors. But we say stick with those three. They're super important. So we'll break down net operating income first. That's the most obvious one for most folks. Really, what is it? It's revenue minus direct costs minus operating expenses equals your NOI. It's basically just showing you the core profit from your before non-operating expenses, right? Am I profitable? Am I running a profitable operation, right? Day to day, based on day-to-day activities.
So when we talk about net profit, is there any metrics that they should be monitoring, like what's good, bad, or great? Like, for example, I know if it's negative, well, we all know negative means bad.
Right.
But what about a 10% or a 50%? Like, so that basically, I guess from a perspective is, when does the bookkeeper should engage with the owner and say, let's take a look at your net income or that metric because something's happening? Well, what kind of advice could you give on that side?
Yeah, I love that question. The fortunate answer is that it's nuanced. Different industries, different size companies, different goals as well. On average, I would say a 20% margin, across industries is respectable. But again, I know that most people probably aren't working with a SaaS company, but if you're working with a software as a service company, those margins are a lot different. If you're working with, a professional services company, maybe that's 20%, 30%, whatever that might be. So it really does vary. But I think that the trick is for anybody is measuring it and improving it, right? Because that's really what it comes down to. You might start at 5% margin. Not very good. And I'll tell you, that one I can tell you with confidence, no matter the industry. You're at a 5% margin, that's a tough place to be. But here's the difference, measuring it. And this is what people miss. And I think that this is true around just about everything. In terms of, if you're talking about fitness or you're talking about something else, it's about consistency. And so when it comes to measuring these things, it's just measuring it month in and month out. And I think that most business owners we work with, they're scattered. It's because running a business is hard and they're wearing a lot of hats. But if we, as their advisor, can talk to them month in and month out and say, we're not going to hit you with 3 different KPIs this month than we talked about last month, or we're not going to change this and that. Every month, we're going to look at these 3 things. And last month, you were at a 5% margin. This month, you're at 6. Doesn't matter. We're improving. You improved your margin by 20% from 5 to 6. So we're on the right track here, right? And that's what you want to do. Is you can't improve what you can't measure. So you want to start by measuring.
I like that, Tommy. That's actually a really good idea, is the consistency of the measuring, because a point in time without any reference point doesn't mean anything, to be quite honest. You're absolutely right. So I guess from a perspective, one is, if you do some research. One is, like you said, the nuances. Look at the industry, look at the customer in general, take a general look to see where he should be, right? Number two is measure it consistently and frequently, like periodically, so that you have a track record. And that makes sense because that keeps you and the owner focused. I really like that. So that's good about net profit. I mean, is there any other? Should they look at gross profit too, or is net profit the only one? Like, there's cost of goods sold, there's net profit, there's you could go to a whole slew of different things just on the income statement alone. You're talking about the bottom line before non-monetary like amortization and tax and so forth. Should they look at another metric in the income statement, or is that the one that they should focus consistently?
It depends. So I would say the short answer is it starts by measuring the bottom line first, just consistently, right? That's where it starts. But I actually completely agree with where do you go from there? Because I think it's a good question, Louis, which is, okay, maybe the margin isn't where you want it to be. Let's go back to the 5% example. It's like, oh boy.
Right.
But then what you got to do is start breaking up that income statement, right? Then you look at maybe like, gross revenue, or you start in is that growing? Is that where it needs to be? Or look at net, net profits and, and gross profit actually, and look at, okay, is it COGS? Is COGS my challenge, right? Maybe I got to renegotiate something there. Or is it an operating expense? Am I spending too much on marketing? So you start breaking that income statement down to understand where might we be able to get leaner, if that's the goal, or do we need to grow at the top line?
I love that. So basically what you're saying is start from the bottom and work your way through, because it's the first red flag, right? So net income, and then analyze what component is impacting the most and see what you can do. So I like, because that focuses you, make it a linear trail going backwards, right? So I really like that. So let's talk about the more nuanced parts that you mentioned, which was I think it was the net equity metric, which is a balance sheet item. And I'm going to be honest with you, most professional accountants focus on the transactional side. So tell us a little bit about that side, because technically the balance sheet is a very important part of the financial. And how does net equity work? Because that might be a good way to take all the confusion for both the owner and make it more simplistic. If you can go through that a little bit.
Yeah, my pleasure. And this one's important. And I agree with you, by the way, it's not only is it pretty much being overlooked by most business owners that we've ever talked to and have had conversations with, but it often is not getting the attention it deserves from their advisors either, honestly. So let's talk about net equity. What is it? It's basically the owner's value in the business, right? It's the change in the owner's stake in the business over time. And it includes things like retained earnings, investments, and distributions. We don't care. Like we'll sideline the technical jargon, but it's really like, what is the business worth? What is the owner's stake of value in what the business is worth ultimately, or what their business is worth? That's really what it comes down to. And the reason it's important is because, I mean, how many of us, of this audience have talked to business owners that think that their business is worth a heck of a lot more than it is, and they're not tracking it systematically. They're not tracking it financially. They're kind of fingering in the wind, hoping that, they're building a bigger business, and bigger means more profitable, and bigger means more valuable. And that's not always the case. Frankly, it's definitely not always the case. So tracking net equity over time is the actual measurement of what this business is worth to this owner outside of the operating profit, which we were just talking about. Now, I'll ask you a question, Louis. What percentage of a business owner's entire net worth as a human being, their entire net worth, how much of their net worth do you think is tied up in their actual business itself versus outside of their business?
That's a tough question, because depending on I would say
it's
their if we take livelihood, it's about 80 or 90%, because it's how they live, and just like anybody else.
Well, you're in the right place. 78%. 78% is how much the average business owner of their entire net worth is tied up in their actual business. And this is why it's important. And this is what we tell folks is, look, owning a business is hard. you're doing it all alone. It feels like, you're scared half the time. You don't have good financials. You're doing the best you can, but you're doing it. And these people get at it for 10 years, 20, more. And it's everything. It's their identity, but it's also their nest egg,
Yeah.
all of that. And it's blood, sweat, and tears year after year, decade into decade, oftentimes. And it should be very important to that business owner of how much is it worth to me? What is this? Am I entering, am I building something that I can exit and retire on, And I think that that's so important for that nest egg conversation. This measurement exactly is that, right? It's every month, are we adding value to your company or are we taking value out? Are we removing too much money? Are we adding, are we adding, where we need to add? Do we need to get leaner here? Ultimately, healthy equity growth indicates the business is actually increasing in value and stability. That's really what it comes down to.
And how does how do loans and mortgages and debt impact net equity? Does it have an impact or no?
Of course, absolutely. So that's the thing when you're thinking about taking on loans. How is that? Loans are going to. Loans. And debt impact pretty much all the financial statements, right? It's, servicing the loan is going to
Right.
impact your operating costs, and that'll impact your net operating income. Taking out a loan on the business will definitely impact the equity that you have in the business and the value of that equity. The questions that really the net equity should be answering for you is, are you reinvesting enough into your business? Are you growing it, or are you just pulling every little thing out of it and it's sustaining? It's worth 500K, and it's always worth 500K because you're just taking out of it. You're just sustaining it. Or do you need to reinvest more into the business to grow the business, to grow the value, to help with your nest egg one day? Other things that impact that or are the distributions. Are the
Okay.
distributions sustainable? Are you, and I hate to say it, but like, is the business owner paying themselves too much?
Right.
Is your business equity going down because you're taking it all out in cash every month? And that's so important for a business owner to understand. Oh man, maybe I can take out a little bit less. Maybe I can get a little leaner in my personal life so that I'm not driving my equity of my own business into the ground. And then ultimately, what we hope to answer is this building long-term wealth for me to retire on or to sell.
That's pretty cool. So when you borrow money in your business, if it's not increasing the other side, which would be asset building, and you're borrowing money that doesn't hit the balance sheet and only hits the income statement, that's a risk, right? I'm assuming that you, because that's a negative right off the bat, right? If it's borrowing money to do operations, the profit will never be equal. It's rare that if you borrow $100,000 for the operational side of it, it's rare that comes back.
Yep.
On net profit.
Yep.
At the same level, right? So compared to if you buy $100,000 worth of equipment or building, that boosts up your asset side and provides you with more, right? So
absolutely,
and the reinvestment of your funds into the company is the other aspect of it that you're talking about, right? So the reinvesting your net profit, not taking out as much dividends, those are things those are the conversations you would have when you talk to your customer, when you talk about net equity. I'm assuming that's the advisory component when you're tracking this metric.
Yeah, 100%. And here's why it's important. Again, is most business owners are looking at their net operating income. Honestly, most can explain, hey, I made more this month than I spent, so I must be doing great.
Right.
But it's very possible that you have a profitable business, but that you're draining your own net worth because you're taking out too many distributions and just reducing that overall value. So it's something to keep in mind. Are we making money and growing our net worth? It doesn't have to be one or the other. And frankly, it shouldn't be one or the other. If you're making money and you paid yourself 10 grand this month, but then the net equity is going down, well, you're just kind of stealing from yourself. Right. And so this is why we want to track both of these things in combination.
Well, actually, that ties it in perfectly, Tommy. Like you said, so you got positive net income, And if you have negative equity over time, the same time frame, something's not working.
Something's not working. And
Yeah.
it sounds, I think when you explain it, it sounds obvious. You're like, yeah, okay, well, that makes sense. I wouldn't want to be taking out more than what my business can actually afford to do. But oftentimes we just find that people aren't tracking it. And if they're not tracking it, they're making that mistake. And it's obviously not intentional. And it might be slight, by the way. It's not like they took out 50 grand this month and now they're going out of business. Maybe it's 500 or $1,000 a little bit too much. And slowly it's dwindling that equity value down. So
that's actually a very good indication of how the things are interconnected, right? So you have to look at both to see how well because you could be very profitable and then still have a very bad business if the equity position is depleting, right? So yeah. The last one you were talking about, which I'd like to talk a little bit more about, is what was it? The net, you have to remind me, net cash flow. Is that correct?
Yeah, net cash from operations. That's exactly right. Yeah. And this one is equally as important. Gosh, I don't have the statistic on me. I wish I did because I used to have it memorized, but I'll say this much. The number one driver of small to medium-sized businesses not making it is cash flow problems. Without a doubt, they are running out of cash. It's not that they're not profitable. And this is the big thing with net cash that most people don't realize is that you can run a profitable business and run out of money.
Yes.
And not be able to pay your bills and have to close the doors. This is a very weird concept because you're thinking, I'm making money, I'm profitable. Yes, the cash is coming, it's no big deal. But too much of that kicking the can down the road is literally the number one reason of companies going out of business in I'll say for the United States. I think that's where my data came from. I can't imagine that Canada would be too much different in terms of small to medium-sized business.
No, I think that's the only ones that don't have to worry about cash flow are governments because they can print their own money. But outside of them, I think every other business has to do it. I agree with you. The net cash flow or cash flow positivity is a timing issue. If you don't prep enough cash flow to make sure you cover your costs based on when they're due, it doesn't matter how much of a profit you have because it's critical.
Yep.
What are the key factors of the cash flow that seem to impact it, Tommy? What are the things that you would have to look at?
Well, again, I think this one depends on the industry itself. I'll give you an example. I was having a conversation with a business owner just the other day. She runs a decent sized mental health group practice in the States here. And she had always been, and this is pretty specific, but she had always been what we would consider private pay, right? She wasn't on insurance panels. It meant that she wasn't working directly with insurance. She would give her clients a super bill. They would give that to their insurance company and then they would get reimbursed. But there was no formal relationship between the insurance company and her practice. And she made the change though. She said, I'm going to get on some insurance panels. I want to start making it a little bit more operationally streamlined to work with these insurance panels and give my clients a little bit better of an experience. So they're not paying out of pocket first and then dealing with the insurance themselves. So for anybody who's in the healthcare space or knows that, can tell you that insurance companies can be a challenge to work with, right? And they don't exactly pay their bills immediately.
Chasing down their money is tough. Yes, absolutely.
100%. So this changed the entire cash flow status of her business. It used to be, one of her clinicians would see a client and they'd pretty much collect on the spot. They'd auto charge the credit card that was on file and cash was in the door. No concern, almost like a professional services business almost, or a cash on demand. But that all changed. So she got on insurance panels. The average time it takes for the insurance to pay for a session is 90 days, sometimes 180. So for her, she's paying her clinicians, in her case, every other week, paying her clinicians for all of the hours in which they were seeing clients. And it's a split model. They get X%, she gets X%, basically like that. So she's out of pocket. Week in, week out, she's out of pocket, basically paying her clinicians because that's how you do it, but not collecting for 90 days. So she can get on, in her case, she can get on a better cadence where, once that initial 90 days is had, then it starts coming in and there's kind of a flow of money that works for her. But that initial 90 days was really cash trapped.
Right. But Tommy, then you have seasonal 90-day things, right? Depending on,
Yeah.
because the people get sick more at certain times than other times. So
Yep.
so yeah, the timing issue, 90 days, that reminds me of construction companies. That's like a perfect
Exactly.
example. Construction companies with the builds, right? All the expenses are up front, and then the revenue trickles in much later. So
Indeed.
so
Indeed.
yeah, yeah. So the cash flow thing is, I guess, will help you uh, determine your needs at any point in time, or consistently know when you're in a deficit position, so you can either get the funding or the lines of credit, or change your collection habits to make sure that it's more consistent,
That's
right?
and in collections, it's funny. It is an easy solution, sometimes hard to actually get. But another couple of things, kind of a derivative of net cash from operations, and I don't encourage people to use this, but a derivative of that is days sales outstanding and days payable outstanding, or DSO and DPO. Always want to
Right.
be looking at, are we paying our vendors faster than we are collecting? If so, that can lead to a poor net cash from operations or a negative net cash from operations trend. And that trend can continue to a point where you start literally running out of cash 6 months into whatever it is, or 8 months into whatever it is. You're like, oh my God, I'm not going to cover payroll. And this is when they freak out. This is when they call us as advisors. This is when they call the bookkeepers, and why it's so important to be tracking this month in and month out. Because if you're not running a program or business where you're collecting faster than you're paying, or that you don't have a way to bridge yourself during those periods of non-collection, then you're going to find yourself in a little bit of a squeeze, and that can be really scary for a business owner.
Well, actually, for our professional bookkeepers, what's in and out is probably the easiest thing to track, because they have that information as they process it. So they would know how much went out this month, how much came in, and all they'd have to do is track that as a byproduct of the net cash flow over a quarter or a period. So again, these three metrics that we just talked about, I have to be honest, if you provide just those three metrics to your business owner, whether it's monthly or quarterly, you should be able to be unique and different. Because that's the other thing when we talk about our services. How do you differentiate yourself, right? And this seems to be like a very easy way to just incorporate it into your business model. My next question on this one is, and this is the advisory part. What do you say? Like, because the bigger question now is, okay, thanks, Tommy. You gave us those three metrics. Fabulous. I'm going to start tracking them. How do I get the guy to pay me for those things? Right. So how do I package this or put it in a position where, uh, do you have any tips on that side? Because, the whole point is this is high value to the customer, but how do we make him to understand, and how do we get him to pay?
Yeah, such a great question. I'm gonna riff on a couple of things here, because you said a few
Right.
things that caught my attention. You said something about differentiating, right? How do we differentiate? And yes, this can differentiate you. Tracking these things can differentiate you from the bookkeeper next door, let's just say.
Right.
But if I had to distill that down, how do you differentiate? It's by being valuable. Forget about the parlor tricks and am I differentiating here or here? Just be of value to your business owner, and that will differentiate you. If you kind of force the conversation a little bit, say,
Right.
look, we're going to track these three things, and this is my job. And look, you look great. No worries. Everything's up and to the right. So you're doing great. But if one of those is off or it's trending the wrong direction, it's up to us to get in front of these business owners and be that advisor. And an advisor is not somebody who just, whispers sweet nothings about how great you are all the time. They're going to tell you, hey, you need to do something. You're not doing it right, because it's my job to help you be successful. And if you take that approach with your clients, I think that you're going to be valuable to your clients. And that's the differentiator. Now, on the other side of the equation, though, I think differentiation is also important in terms of how you market yourself, and how you sell these these more advisory level packages, I'll tell this audience what I tell most of the people I talk to directly, especially in bookkeeping, is if you're a bookkeeper today and you've got, say, 30 clients, and you haven't really been doing advisory work, but that's where you're headed. Here's the
Right.
tough part I'm going to tell everyone right now. The vast majority of those 30 clients, maybe with the exception of one or two, is not going to be paying you anything more. They're never going to pay you more. You can deliver all the advisory work in the world, but they are accustomed to paying you a certain amount for a certain thing. And that extra level of advisory is probably not going to seem like the value they want for extra costs. They're going to be managing their costs first. And that's just the way it goes. Now, how do you get into advisory then? It's with new clients. And goes back to the differentiation. How do we lock these clients? I think a lot of it is dependent on perception is reality. How you market yourself, how you talk about things. If you were to go to a potential new client and say, yeah, here's what I do differently. Here's 3 core metrics that I track with every single one of my business owners
Right.
month in and month out. Net operating income, net equity, and net cash from operations. They're going to go, okay, I don't even know. What is all that? Are you profitable? Are you adding to your net worth? And are you about to run out of cash? That's what you care about. I'm going to help you sleep better at night so that you don't wake up in 3 months from now saying, holy crap, how am I going to cover my payroll this week? Right. And so if you went into a new business conversation and talked like that, and then offered a potential sample deliverable, here's an example report I'm going to send you every single month with these 3 KPIs and my takeaways on that every single month, on top of the fact that, of course, we're going to do the debits and the credits, and we're going to make sure that you have accurate data. But I charge $1,500, not $500.
Right.
A lot of business owners, and if you're talking to the right business owners, they're going to care about that. They're going to care about growing their net worth. They're going to have some sort of form of an exit plan. They're going to want to be profitable, and they're certainly going to resonate with the idea of how am I going to cover payroll? Most business owners we know have been in that situation, and it's not fun. And they're going to nod their head when you say that stuff. So,
That was very insightful with regards to that, because you're right. When our original customer base that we have right now today, which we haven't incorporated these things, we weren't selecting the business owner that wants to build or wants to know about these things. So we might not have the right customer because they don't care, right? If they don't care, you're right. How are they going to see the value? If they don't care, I care. It doesn't matter, as long as they have to care first. And Tommy, I love that. When you bring in a new customer, you tell them these 3 things and you give your price. If he cares about those 3 things, he's more than willing, because he sees the value, right?
yep.
And if he doesn't care, he walks away. That means that you don't have to spend your time on non-advisory customers in your pool. Does that make sense? I
100%.
really like that. I like that.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, I'll give everyone a little bit of a cheat sheet as well in terms of, and it's not true 100%, but I'll say this vast majority is true here, which is if your customer is doing under $1 million in annual revenue,
Right.
they might not be the best fit for advisory. It doesn't mean that they're not the best fit forever. It just means right now they're still figuring out probably a lot of the nuts and bolts of their businesses. Where people start being able to work on their business versus in their business is once they start crossing that $1 million annual revenue threshold. They might have a couple of people helping them. They might have an operation that seems a little bit more sustainable, and they have a little bit more space to be thinking, how might I move the needle this year? How might I grow this year? They're already doing that beforehand, but it was a little bit more chaotic. Now they can be a little bit more systematic in their approach. And that's where we can come in as the advisors and be able to tell them, hey, I've got some ideas for you month in and month out. Let's just track these 3 things, right? Let's see where we can lean up on the income statement or something like that.
Well, what's interesting is if you track it at all levels and they get used to that, you can actually put it's included in this price because you're at 500. When you get to $1 million, here's my new price point because you're at $1 million, and you can just funnel in that premium because the advisory is more valuable, right? So you're training them too. Like I said, I really like it, Tommy. So Tommy, this has been great. I have a few more questions, but I'm literally running out of time.
Okay.
Where can people find out more about you and Hub Analytics? Because I'm assuming Hub Analytics does everything we just talked about, correct?
It does. Yeah, absolutely. So look, Anybody who wants to look us up, it's hub-analytics.com. You can hit our website. You can request a demo. Somebody from our sales team will reach out to you immediately and get you scheduled. But yeah, Hub, look, our mission is to make business owners' lives better through excellent financial management. But we've chosen to do that through the practitioners. We absolutely love working with bookkeepers who are helping make business owners' lives better. And actually, ironically, we get to make their lives better too, as a
Yes,
business owner of a bookkeeping firm. So we get to kind of serve our purpose in multiple levels, so to speak. But that's what we're all about. And we've created a platform that's based on artificial intelligence that streamlines a lot of these workflows so that you don't
fantastic.
have to create a chart and a graph or even narrate those things. It all gets automatically generated with literally the click of a button. You just sync to QuickBooks. We pull everything and do all the work after that, and you do your monthly call with your customer. So we're hoping to make bookkeepers' business lives better, and then they in turn can make their clients' lives better as well through excellent financial management. So,
Perfect. Well, Tommy, thank you for being on the show.
yeah, Louis, it's always a pleasure. Love talking with you. Great to see you again, and appreciate you having me on.
Well, that wraps up another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. To learn more about today's guest and to get access to all sorts of valuable free business building resources, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to the Spotlight edition of The Successful Bookkeeper with Louis Prosperi. For more information and to access the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening and have a great week.